Welcome everyone to this session on Management Reporter, Nifty Reporting Tricks in GP. Quick little intro slide for us. My name is Noah Moseley. I am with the MSX group. I'm a senior consultant here and certified instructor. I've worked with financial reporting, budgeting, and forecasting software for over 20 years now. Started off with Great Plains, then rolled to Microsoft, and now with MSX Group. I was with Great Plains back in 2001, but really only for one day. That was the day that Microsoft officially closed the purchase of Great Plains. So then I was with Microsoft from 2001 through 2008, all the time doing these products management reporter, FRX forecaster. And we started our own company, MSX Group, in 2008. And if you need me after today's session, email is the best way to get in touch with me. It's at the bottom of the screen there, noah.moseley@msxgroup.com. So a lot of different topics that we're going to look at during this session. We're going to look at different options for filtering out data, organizing data between columns and rows and security, report groups. We'll look at departments in columns using dimension filters or reporting tree filters. We'll do the same kind of deal in the row definitions. We'll look at sorting data. You can sort data for any of the reports you build. The description column data can be sorted alphabetically. Any of your numeric columns. We'll look at building an annual forecast report, easy to pull actuals and budget balances together into a single report, including transaction level details in your reporting. And we'll also look at security for users and user groups, and then using those settings in reporting tree security in the report groups where you can run a lot of reports at one time. All right, let me jump over to our management reporter image. And I'm going to start off with that income statement where we have different departments in different columns. So you see here the row definition, nothing special in the row definition. It's just our sales, cost of goods sold, all of our expenses. Everything really for this example is in the column definition where we're using separate columns to sort out balances into departments. So we've got a column for sales department, administration department, accounting, corporate, and then a total calculated column that just adds those four together. I'm going to take us back to Report Designer for Management Reporter to look at the column definition. And here I've got columns A through F. Column A is just description. I have 4 FD columns, and then a calculated column, just adding those 4 together. The 4 FD columns, I do have a header, sales department, administration, accounting, corporate, and total. That's just text. That has nothing to do with sorting out balances. That is really handled on the bottom part of the screen. These are all FD columns pulling actual balances for us for whatever year I run the report for and whatever month I run the report for, and the activity for that year and month for those columns. Now, if I did nothing else, these 4 columns would pull back the same balances for all 4 of them. But I do have in the bottom a dimension filter option telling each column to only pull back certain balances. So dimension filter, I've got in column B for our sales department, which is anything posted to segment 1, which is department for us, to 000. Column C, anything posted to segment 1, 100, which is administration's department. Accounting is segment 1, 200, and corporate, anything posted to 300 in segment 1. So that's an easy filter for us to filter out any balances into any FD columns here. And if you double click any of these 4, that brings up the dimension filter window. This window is the same window you would use in the row definition or in the reporting tree definition for any of your segments or dimensions. And you can see this one is segment 1000. You've got plenty of rows here. You can add more filters here. If you double click any of these, it brings up a lookup box to help you figure out what these values should be. And all these work out fine with wildcards and ranges as well. All right, so that is one option to filter out balances by any of your dimensions. And that works great in most of situations for reporting. But there may be some times when you need a reporting tree to sort out data. That's fine as well. In each FD column, we can use a reporting unit filter. Now, you would have to go out and build your reporting tree first. So I already have a tree for departments. So in column B for reporting unit, I'll double click. Brings up a list. There's a drop down list up top, and I can select my department reporting tree. That shows me the bottom of the screen how that tree looks. I'll just say, okay, well, this column is sorted out by sales. And then column C, administration, same tree, administration. Column D, accounting, same tree, accounting. And then column E, corporate. Now there's three others I did not put into this report, and that's why I did not have an FD column in column F. I used a calculated column to add that range of accounts between B, C, D, and E, because you may have balances in these other three departments that are not needed in this report. But we don't want to throw off our total column. Now, if you are going to use a reporting unit filter in your column definition, you can only use one tree for this definition for all these columns, and that same tree needs to be used in your report definition as well. So a couple of caveats there for including that level of detail for reporting unit filters. So great feature there to give us our filtering options into different columns for all these department balances. Now the same kind of concept is available for the rows as well. So if I look at this example, I have my income statement. My column set is different, but there's nothing special in my column definition. I just have a description column, a monthly column, and a year-to-date column. Now, what I do have differently is in my row definition for expenses, I have grouped all my total expenses into separate rows here by department. So all of my accounting department expenses are on one row. All of my sales department expenses are on one row. All my administration expenses are on one row, and corporate is on a separate row. All this is handled in the row definition. In the same way we just looked at the column definition, you've got two options. Put it in the dimension filter box in column J for the row definition, or you can use a reporting tree definition as well. So let's go back to Report Designer and Management Reporter. We'll switch out reports, departments by rows, and let's look at the row definition. Now for expenses, we have separate rows for our different departments. Column J, they are all the same range of accounts. Account numbers 5,000 through 8,999. So if it did nothing else, these rows would pull back the same balances. But I do have a reporting unit filter for each one of these rows, and that's in column D for us. I can see that these are filtering out different departments on every row. Now you can double click in column D. This will bring up the same window we saw for reporting unit filters in the column definition. There's a drop-down list up top asking us what reporting tree we want to use. And then we select from that reporting tree what every row should be filtered by. So easy to add those in. It's not as pretty when it displays here, but double clicking gives you a clear graphical display of what rolls up into what. Now this is the reporting unit filter from a reporting tree. You could, if you don't need the reporting tree, but well, he also mentioned that if you do in the row definition reference a reporting tree, you can only reference that one reporting tree for every row in this row definition, and that same reporting tree has to be used in the report definition. But the second option here is, let's say that we're not going to reference the reporting tree. We just take out everything out of column D. In column J, we have all of our range of account numbers, I'll double click for each one of these and fill in our segment codes. So dimensions in column J work fine. Has a dimension filter for all these rows here. This is the same window we saw in the column definition for dimension filters. So 2 easy options there. Use the options in column J for dimension filters, or in column D, use a reporting tree as a filter. By all means, I would start off with column J, see if you make J work for whatever you need for your purpose. But if column J can't do exactly what you need to do, then look at adding column D for a reporting tree reference. Annual forecast. Let's look at that for a bit. So it's easy to combine any number of book codes into a single report. For this example, I've got an income statement, my row definition, nothing particular there. It's just a list of a typical income statement, revenue, cost of goods sold, and expenses. But in the column definition, I do have a lot of columns. So I have actuals, January, February, March, and I only have 3 columns of actuals because I ran this report for March. So 3 months are displayed. In my column definition, I do have all the months detailed, but I have a conditional statement that says, okay, if this column is in the future, then hide this column when you run the report. So we have a conditional print option for figuring out which columns should show up and which columns should be hidden. Same concept applies for all of the budget columns in the future. So I've got April through December, but in my column definition, I actually have February through December, and my conditional print option figures out which columns are in the future to display those columns and hide the current month and prior. And then all the way to the right, I do have a calculated annual forecast column. This is a range calculation, and range calculations in the columns knows to not include any balances from hidden columns. That way it doesn't throw off the totals here. So we are going to look at the column definition for this forecasted income statement back in Management Reporters Report Designer. Look at annual forecast. And we'll look at the column definition for this report. Now we have a lot of FD columns. The first 11 or 12 columns are all referencing actuals for whatever year I run the report for. And the period numbers are hard-coded 1 through 12 for each one of these columns. And they're all periodic activity. Now the conditional statement that figures out which columns should show and which columns should be hidden are on the print control field, about halfway down the page. So for every one of these, it's a formula. If I double click on that row, pops up, gives me my print control window and the conditional drop down at the bottom here. And for the actual columns, I'm using the second from the bottom. It compares 2 period balances. The period number I've typed in for that column, which column D is period 3, and B is the base month that I run the report for. So for this column, if that number is less than or equal to whatever month I run the report for, this column shows up. And once you have your conditional statement for the first actual column, which I set that up for column C, then just right click and copy that and paste it to all of the actual columns. You can't paste it to the budget. Those are just kind of the opposite almost. So once you finish with all of your actual columns, then scrolling to the right, we have all of our budget columns. They're still FD columns because our budget is in our general ledger, just with a different book code. I have 2014 for the year, but you would really just have the word base for whatever year you run the report for. Period numbers are hard-coded 2 through 12, and they're all activity for each one of these. And then our conditional print control is P, which is the period number for this column. If it's greater than B, the month I run the report for, this column, the statement is true, this column shows up. And do this once for budget, copy it, paste it to all the other budget columns. And then in column Y, our calculated annual forecast column is just a range of columns from column B through X. And again, the range calculation will ignore any columns that are hidden when you run the report. Column headers, I do have 2 rows of column headers here. I have header row 1, actuals and budget. They do not display exactly how they are when they run until you run the report. But if you double click on actuals or budget, you can see these are in a box. And this for actuals is spread from column B through column M. And for budget, it's in a box spread from column N through X. And then I have header row 2, which is just a formula for the name of the month. I just did that once, copied and pasted it to every column to the right, except for the total column. So easy columns to set up here for a forecasted income statement. Pulling in balances from any book code you've got in the GL, actual, budget, forecast, original budget, second quarter forecast, any book code you've got storing your budget balances or actuals. So really easy to set that up here for us. And we are going to look at the next report example. We just looked at the annual forecast report. Let's look at sorting data in Management Reporter. Now you can sort any data for any report you build inside Management Reporter. So for this report, I have in my row definition a long list of account numbers, and in my column definition, I have a column pulling all the balances, and that's just an FD column pulling the balances. I'm sorting all these columns by those balances from greatest through least. And then I have some if statements on the right that sort those balances into separate columns. So this first set of numbers, anything greater than $30,000. On the very far right-hand side, anything less than $5,000. Then right here in the middle, anything in between those. So those are all handled in the column definition. Now, if you are going to sort data, you do have to make changes in the column definition and in the row definition to get that sorting to work correctly. And you really need to build your column definition first so you know what column of data you're going to sort. So let me jump back over to Report Designer, Report Definitions, Expense Analysis, and we'll look at the column definition first. So here I've got my description column, and column B is my FD column pulling actuals for whatever year I run the report for. It's always set to period 12 and year to date. And I have this set to a width of 1. It showed up the balances the one we just looked at, but if I ran it here with a width of 1, that column would actually kind of hide itself, but not completely. I can't use a non-printing column here and then sort data by that column. You have to have that column at least show up. Your option for hiding that row, but still using it for sorting it, is set the width to a 1. So column B pulls in the balances, and column B is what I will tell my row definition to sort data by. Now I also have column C, D, E, and F. C E and F are the columns that show up, sorting balances into separate columns. Column C is just helping me sort or figure out what columns are between $5,000 and $30,000. So column C, I have a calculated column. It is an if statement for the formula that says, okay, look at column B, anything greater than $30,000, put it into this column. Column F is the opposite calculation. The if statement says anything in column B that is less than $5,000, put it into column F. Column D is non-printing, doesn't show up, but I have it pull back anything greater than 4,999 from column B. And then column E, the one that does show up in the middle, is a calculation. It's just a difference column, taking column D and subtracting column C. So anything between $5,000 and $30,000. Now, sorting data doesn't have these columns on C, D, E, and F. Really doesn't have anything about sorting data. That's just about the if statement example for putting data into separate columns. But column B is what I'm going to use to sort the balances. So build your column definition, figure out which column of data you're going to sort, and then back in the row definition, here I have a long list of account numbers, and there's no sorting yet for these account numbers. These are all just entered here numerically for account number 5100 all the way through the last account number for expenses. The row that controls sorting of the data is at the top here, row 50. And I've got a format code. Anytime you're going to sort data, you have a format code. Column D has to be filled in telling what rows you're going to sort, and column H has to be filled in for which column you're going to sort the data. So column C, format codes. There are 4 format codes for sorting data. If I double click, they're the bottom 4 options here: sort, A sort, sort descending, A sort descending. The ones that start with A are for absolute values. We are just using sort by descending values. So once you select from those 4 options, column D, then we tell Management Reporter which row codes from column A we're going to sort. We're going to sort every row from row code 100 through 3670. So all of my rows that have account numbers. And then the last thing we fill in column H, we need to tell this row definition or this report to go back in the column definition and look at column B to sort column B's balances. So 3 things here: the format code in column C, column D, which row codes we're going to sort, and column H, which column from the column definition of data we're going to sort. Now, this row at the top here, row 50, there's no print control for non-printing. You don't have to. It knows that sorting format codes in column C are automatically hidden, so that row will never show up. It's just there to tell it how to sort data. But an easy option there to sort any report data that you build inside Management Reporter: actual data, budget data, calculated columns, even description columns. So a lot of flexibility there for organizing that data. And that will give you, if you use the column definition where I had that 1 for the width of column B here would not show up. This one shows up because I did run it without the column width set to 1. But if I ran it again, column B's list of balances would be hidden. All right, let's look at this income statement for transaction level details. So if I click anywhere on any of the numbers or descriptions here, this drills down to the account level detail for that row. And these are hyperlinks as well. click on any of these account numbers or balances, that will let me drill down to the transaction level details for that row. So I can see all the entry dates, the balances that were posted on those dates. And I also have 3 additional columns of transaction level details that I put on the right-hand side. Transaction descriptions, distribution references, and journal entry numbers. Now, I've only added 3 columns. You can add more than 3 columns here. I put mine on the right. You can put them anywhere here in the middle or on the left. I think they just do better when they go on the right. And I don't have the width set to a particular size. It's just auto set to the widest entry. Now, if you're going to include transaction level details, you have to make changes in the column definition and in the report definition itself. So let's go back. We'll look at the column definition first. Okay, we have our report definition open. We'll go to the column definition. I have description column, FD columns, some calculated columns, budget columns, all these for the periodic activity, then year-to-date activity. I have added columns L, M, and N for transaction level detail columns. So for any report you build that's going to have transaction level details, you can add ATTR column types. And once you have ATTR selected for those columns, then you can also, right on the next row, include what type of transaction level detail each column will pull. I've got transaction descriptions, distribution references, and journal entry numbers. And these are all set to auto-fit for the widest entries. Now, once I had this, I highlighted and copied the text and just pasted that into my header just so that I would see that and know what those represented when I ran the report. I only have 3 columns here of attribute detail, but you can add more columns. I'll just add 2 extra columns to the right, select ATTR for attributes, and then the next row down, double click. This gives me a list of all the different options, and this list is for GP, of the different transaction level detail columns I can add to my reports. So easy to add any of these here. Then just copy that and paste it to the header so you know what they represent. So that lets you add that level of detail. These extra ATTR column types do not display until you drill down through the reports to the transaction level detail pages. So these columns do not show up on the account level details, and they do not show up on the first page of the financial summary reports. Now, once you have these added to your column definition, you do need to go into your report definition and make sure that here on the report tab, for detail level, the drop down says financial account and transaction. If you do not have transaction displayed, you will not have the option to drill down to that level of detail, and you'll never have those extra columns show up. So change the detail level to include transaction level details to allow the drill down to that page. And also one other thing, anytime you're going to include transaction level details, you have to have at least one column in your column definition that is periodic activity. So you can't have every FD column just pulling year-to-date balances. You have to have at least one column of periodic activity in order to drill down to the transaction level page. But great way there to include the drill down there. And if you're looking at a report that has transaction level detail in the browser here, go back one page. When I clicked on the account numbers, that took me to directly to the page with the transaction level detail pages, columns. If I go back one, I'm on the account level detail page. If I click on any balance for like actuals here, I have an option to go to that transaction level detail page, or this could take me right back into Dynamics directly. So 2 options there. If you double click on a number that has drill down into Dynamics, it'll pop up as a list option here. If you just click on the account, it just takes you to the next transaction level detail page for drill down. So a little bit different about how those two function a little bit differently when you're clicking on the account numbers versus when you're clicking on account balances. All right, a couple other topics here. Let's talk about security for a little bit. Security on the left-hand side here. If you are an administrator, you can add as many users in Management Reporter as you need to. These are all Windows authenticated user IDs. You do not have to have licenses for these. Management Reporter, you can add as many as you need to. If I click on New option here, you do have the search option. You have to pick someone who's already on the Windows network at your company. And there is a drop-down list for the type options. You have viewers, you have generators, designers, and administrators, which really controls what those users can do inside the application. You can't make changes to these options or make new ones here. So administrators can do anything inside the application, build reports, run reports, even control security here. Designers cannot make changes to security on this window here. They don't have that button on the left for security, but they can build and generate reports. Generators cannot build reports. They can only run reports someone else has built for them. They can change the date, but they can't make new reports. And viewers, even less access. They cannot build reports. They cannot run reports. They can only look at reports that someone else has run for them. So 4 different role types here inside Management Reporter. You cannot change or make new ones here. Just pick from that drop-down list. Once you have your list of users here, you could then apply these users to security in the library permission folders or in reporting trees. But instead of listing individual people in those areas, I prefer to make groups, add the people to those groups, and then assign the groups to the reporting trees or the library permissions. So groups, you can make as many groups as you need to inside the application. I've got several already set up here. If I double click and look at accounting, I can see I've got 3 individual users that have been set up here. You can add as many people to this group as you need to. And that way, if you have people that switch responsibilities or go between different departments, it's just a matter of coming back to the group and removing them from here and moving them somewhere else. And really, if you go to an individual user, I double click to open up this user's modify window. There's a tab for groups. And let's just say this person went from sales over to corporate. So easy to change them right here in this pop-up box for individual users between groups. Now, once you have your group set up, then you look at using those groups in the library permissions or in the reporting tree definitions. So let's go look at reporting tree definitions. We'll look at department. For this one, I do not have any security set up so far because column L, unit security, is all blank. That means that anybody can run these, who can run these reports or access the reports as a viewer can see anything in this reporting tree, data from any department here. But you can fill in groups here in column L. I'll start off on the top row, just double click that first cell, click the button that says users and groups. Again, I do not add individual users, I add groups into the trees here. So I'll start off with our MR, Management Reporter Administrators. Have that once. Copy that down if you didn't have it set to copy down automatically. Because once you start filling in security in column L, even administrators cannot see that part of the tree if they're not set up in column L. So add your Management Reporter admins first, or at some point, and then go back and make additions for other groups here. So accounting, I'll double click in column L, users and groups, and select accounting. Same thing for corporate. Double click, users and groups, corporate. And then on down until you have all that filled in. And now when you use this reporting tree against say an income statement, these people, if they have access to the report, they will still only have access to their department data. So easy way to control access to different parts of reporting trees using groups and unit security in the trees in column L. Now, another great feature that I like inside Management Reporter, I don't have it open, but I'll go back and run one for us, would be report groups. This lets you run several reports as one group. So I have report groups at the top. I've got 3 already set up. I'll look at monthly reporting packages. I've got 3 tabs here. The first tab lets me see that I've got 6 reports in this group. You can add as many reports to these groups as you need to. There's an add button. Just select from the window here. These are all report definitions. When you get ready to run the report, you can open this window. You can check the box to change the date or anything else here. You've got tabs for the group distribution, where you want to sort these in the library folders or in SharePoint folders on the right, and the report individual report distribution as well. Once you have your settings here, you can run this. This will have any reports that are listed here generate, and this creates a landing page for us. Every green tile here is one of those separate 6 reports. You would provide this to your end users, say, hey, these reports are ready for you to review. They'll click the tile that opens up that report and go back, open up the next report. They can also right click, open that in a new window, so you have the easy navigation so that they are side by side on several windows. So easy navigation. And I really do like this landing page that's available in the web browser, so that they have one place to go and see all their monthly reports. They know which ones are available, and they're right here in front of them. And when they click these green tiles, it's not rerunning the report, it's just opening up the one that you ran for them. So that is report groups in Management Reporter. All right, so a lot of great topics we have looked at here. I want to recap this. We looked at sorting our account balances into separate columns by department. So any of your segments or dimensions you can put into separate columns of your reports using dimension filters or reporting tree filters. The same idea applies for putting balances on separate rows using dimension filters or reporting tree filters. We looked at sorting data. You can sort any balances or descriptions in your reports that you build numerically, alphabetically, ascending, descending, absolute values, all that's fine. We also looked at the if statement in that example as well, where you could take those balances and sort them out into separate columns using conditional if statements. We saw how easy it was to build an annual forecasted income statement, combining actuals with budget columns side by side, having those all add together. We used that conditional print control to help figure out which columns of actuals should show up and which columns of budget should show up based on what month you run the report for. We looked at transaction level details by adding those extra columns and drilling down to that level of detail on the report after they generate. We looked at security for individual users and groups, and then using those in the reporting tree security. And that last topic we just covered was report groups, where you can have as many report definitions in one group as you need, have them all run at one time, and then makes that web browser landing page with the large green tiles, one green tile for every report that was included. So a lot of great features in Management Reporter when you are building and managing your reports from your journal ledger data. All right, one last slide here to wrap us up. Thank you so much for joining me today. Glad to be a part of it. If you have questions after today, email is the best way to get in touch with me at noah.moseley@msxgroup.com at the bottom of the screen there. And also a big shout out to the organizations who set up these webinars, MS Dynamics World and Dynamics User Group. So two great participants in our community for Dynamics. Glad to have them around, and glad that they invite us all to do sessions like this and share our knowledge. All right, everybody, have a great day, and I look forward to talking again with you all soon.